Welcome everybody to the Crown Town Challenge Leadership Webinar, sponsored by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. I'm Jeff Chadiha. I'm with the NFL Network, but I'm also a member of the C10 committee, one of the people who helped put this thing together. And I can tell you that I'm very honored and humbled to see the turnout for this. We're very excited about the money we've been able to raise over the past month because it's going to a very important cause, the C10 leadership mentoring group that we put together. And so we're very excited to have you here. And I'm excited about this hour because we have some great leaders to talk to over the next 55, 60 minutes. That includes Christa Dubill, who is the Chief Communications Officer for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City and a former anchor at KSHB. You probably remember her from those days. We have Dayton Moore, who is the Vice President and General Manager of the Kansas City Royals. And we also have General Richard Myers, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the current president of Kansas State University. So all you Wildcats out there should be excited about seeing him on this as well. Before I get started here, I do want to get into some housekeeping stuff. First and foremost is thanking the people who help us pay the bills around here, and those are our sponsors. I mentioned Blue Cross Blue Shield in Kansas City. They've been a big part of what we've been doing at C10 for the past 3 years. So thank you for that. But also the people who've helped us with the Crown Town Challenge. That includes Steppen Rothwell, Luxury and Imports, City Rent-A-Truck, and Precision Printing. So thank you for that. And I also want to get into some housekeeping details of a different sort so people can understand what's going to happen here over the next 60 minutes. We are just going to have a conversation with these great people, but I want to give you a chance to understand that there's been some questions asked about what we're going to do. And so some have asked, there's going to be a link to this after it's done. Part of the audio will be heard on the C10 podcast, and then highlights will be put on the CU and the Major Leagues Foundation social media and YouTube channels. We'll get that information to you in the next few days or so. I've also been asked if you can submit questions, and that will be a part of this process. So if you have questions, you can go into the chat room and put them on, and Matt Folks, who is the director of the CU and the Major Leagues Foundation, will be able to see what's out there and handpick some stuff. If I haven't asked it, you want to throw it out there, you're more than welcome to. And click on the Q&A button, by the way, to do that. So you'll be able to do that. And also, will there be opportunities for other questions? And there will be. Dayton is going to stick around after this ends at 12 o'clock. He will be here for another 15 minutes or so to take some questions about the Royals or Major League Baseball, the CU and the Major Leagues Foundation. So you'll be able to ask those questions. Christian and General Myers have to run, but Dayton will be here to take those inquiries as well. I see he's gotten his camera figured out here, so I'm going to give him some time to get that done. And it's great timing because now he's got his camera right. We can go to him for some additional comments.
No, I went offline for some reason, but anyway. But look, Jeff, we're just so appreciative of your time, General Myers, Christina Lively. You're an all-star. Appreciate everything that you've always done, and Blue Cross KC and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City. It's an amazing group of people, and we're thankful for everybody's willingness to participate today. Mentoring is so important, and I think if we're all very transparent about our lives, we can all reflect back to a period of time where we had people come into our lives, people we didn't necessarily expect, and maybe some that we did, shared a word of encouragement to us, shared their mistakes with us, gave us some hope, and just kept us going through some maybe difficult times in our life. And so that's why I'm so proud of what we're doing with our C10 leadership program. We have great mentors, willing students coming together, supporting one another, and just breathing life on each other. And the mentors get so much out of it, as much as the students do. And so we're just, where iron sharpens iron, that's exactly what's occurring on a daily basis, a weekly basis. And so we're just so proud to have this opportunity and listen to Christa and General Myers. And I'm looking forward to learning together for this next hour.
Great, thanks, Dayton. Well, people have asked us, why we're doing this webinar, and to take you back to September, early September. This is our way of raising money for this program. Normally we've had football tournaments and we had a Top Golf event planned, and because of COVID-19, those things had to be scuttled. So this is our way of actually trying to fund what we do, which is really important. We, 3 years ago when we started this program, we were able to get 11 kids in with 11 mentors, and we really love what we did. Last year, we actually got up to about 17, 18 kids and had them with mentors, and also what we call pinch hitters, people who help out with the mentoring process. This year, we're up to 20 kids. And not only are we mentoring those kids, we're also helping those kids with scholarship money to go to college or to do things. If they don't want to go to college, trade school, whatever they're doing, we want to support them beyond this process, because mentoring isn't just about what we're doing right now. It's about planting a seed and hoping it grows into a pretty strong tree down the road. But as we go forward here, this event honors mentors. It helps us raise money, and even though we've raised some money, we're thankful for what we have right now. Today we can still do more because we were able to get a $5,000 gift that would match any money we raised today. And so our goal for this whole event was $50,000 or so. We're still pushing towards that. But if we can get over that hump today with whatever you can offer, we're going to be able to double whatever is contributed today. So keep that in mind as well. So we want to not just hit our goal, we want to run beyond it. We want to break it as best we can. And so with that, I want to get into what we're doing here. Basically, what we want to talk about is leadership. And I think what I want to do is I want to go around the room here and just kind of get a general sense of this. And Christa, I'll start with you. It'll be ladies first. I want to ask you the first question. How do you define leadership?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I think leadership can be different things to different people. I think for me, leadership, it's leading by example. I think a lot of people would answer it that way. I think that leadership is being willing to go through the experiences with the team or the people you're leading. I think that you have a whole lot of credibility if you've been through it before when you go to lead the team. I think that's helpful. And I think being able to authentically share your missteps or things you've learned along the way and being real about that, I think can also set the stage for someone else being able to talk about their missteps or what the guidance they've needed in the past. And so the more I think that people can get to know each other on a personal level and understand their experiences, then that leadership becomes something that people can follow because they can relate. And so it's relatability, it's authentic, and it is about being willing to share the lessons you've learned along the way.
General Myers?
Same question, Jeff?
Same question, yep.
Okay, so I'd say leadership's the activity that harnesses the power of humans to achieve some objective. And I think it's one of the key things in life. If you want to get things done, good things done, requires leadership. I would also say that leadership's not a title, and I think people in sports know this for sure. Of course, we here on our K-State football team, we got team captains. They have a title. They're expected to lead, but we expect leadership out of lots of folks in that locker room and on the field, and they can be a freshman, they can be a senior. So I think as people think about leadership, that it's not in some cases, the formal title. Yeah, you're expected to lead. I think most people on this call are on the panel, but there's a lot of informal leadership that also has a huge impact. But I think leaders have to figure out how to empower and harness the power of the team they're on and use it for the mission. And that's kind of how I see leadership.
The same question to you, Dayton.
Yeah, Jeff, it's I've always wanted the privilege to lead. Scared at times, nervous at times, a little fearful of making mistakes, but I've always wanted that privilege. And what I've learned through lots of failures is the way to continue to be in leadership, similar to what Christa said, to be vulnerable, be transparent. You have to understand that it begins and ends with putting others first. If I want the continued opportunity to lead, we've got to focus on how we provide opportunity for other people, put them in the right positions to be successful. be a cheerleader for them, encourage them. The joy you get from leadership in mentoring is, as General Myers said, is just kind of just allow people to move forward in a way that they're freed up to live their lives and succeed and achieve things they never thought they could achieve. And so that's one of the most beautiful aspects of leadership for me. Over the last 5+ years or so, I've realized that it's so much about the next generation. What can we do as leaders to model the behavior that we want seen in others? But what I've enjoyed so much about leadership is just being able to come alongside of people and give them opportunity to reach their goals and provide for their families and do something well. It's something they love to do. And it's relationship, it's getting to know people, learning to trust each other's hearts. Oftentimes, we have to stand up in front of a group and articulate a message and a vision and a locker room speech, if you will. And those things are important. But I think really the only way to connect with people, you've got to spend time one-on-one, small groups, and so we can understand each other's hearts. And then when you understand each other's hearts, you have a chance to be a much more effective leader. And, through a lot of things that we've been experiencing through COVID-19, through racial tension in this country, I've learned that it's very hard to articulate feelings.
Yeah.
Words sometimes just don't come out right. And so in leadership, I think it's important that we make an advanced decision that we're going to give each other some grace to make some mistakes. And we're going to make an advanced decision to support leaders, especially those leaders that we know are good people, trying to do the right thing. They have a track record of success in serving others. Let's make an advanced decision. We're going to support those leaders because they're going to make mistakes along the way. And society tends to beat them up. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm talking too much, and I want to give the rest of my time to Christa and General Myers. When we hired Mike Matheny, I asked Mike Matheny this question. I said, Mike, why do you want to do this? The media clearly isn't happy that you're potentially going to be the next manager of the Kansas City Royals. The fans are all over you on Twitter. You've been very successful financially. You're not getting younger. You're not getting more time to spend with your family. Why do you want to do this? And he said, well, he said all the right things. I love to compete. I enjoy leadership. He said, but the reason I want to do this is because I know you guys have my back. Nobody's ever said that to me before. And it made me realize the importance of fighting for your people and believing in them. And he knows without a doubt, he can put his head on a pillow at night knowing that we got his back, regardless of how the day goes, regardless of the mistakes he made. And so it's taught me to make an advanced decision that I'm going to support leaders. I'm going to support those people that are out there in the arena fighting every single day for the good of others. As long as I know they're good people, they have a track record of trying to do the right thing. So a long-winded answer to your question, but that's what leadership kind of means to me.
Okay, Christa, I'm going to come back to you for the second question, but I want to put one more detail out there about giving today, because I didn't include that. If you want to donate, you can do it two ways. You can go to crowntownchallenge.com and hit the donate button, or you can text the number 31996 and type C10. That's the letter C and the number 10. You can do it that way. So just keep that in mind if you want to give some money today. And so we'll come back to you, Christa, for round two of this group question and answer session. And I want to ask you, since we talked about leadership, how did you learn to become a leader?
I think some of the best leaders I've ever met in my life didn't seek out learning to be a leader. Some of the best leaders I've ever met started out not wanting to be a leader because they were just fine being on the team or being the person that was the kind of the person that could motivate and be trusted and have those conversations, but yet didn't want that that disconnect that can sometimes come with becoming a leader, where you feel like you lose that connectivity. So I even struggle to call myself a leader now. It seems odd. I feel like I'm, no different than anyone else, but what I have been through, I will tell you that I think that can speak to a lot of people on the call. When you go through life and you experience ups and downs, when you have struggles, when you are faced with adversity, when you come from a place where you have you don't even know. I mean, my childhood, my mom was a single mom. She worked 3 jobs. She qualified for assistance. We lived in this tiny little house. We always called the brown house, even though years later someone painted it yellow. It's still the brown house. It's been torn down now. You don't even realize when you're in that as a child that you don't have things. I didn't find out till much later that there were times my mom couldn't eat because we couldn't afford it. She always made sure we didn't know as kids, we didn't know. And I think about going through those experiences, and my mom would say to me, "I'm sorry I couldn't do more for you girls when you were little." And we always said, my response was always, if you'd have done one more thing for me, it wouldn't have become the person I am today. And I've been able to build relationships. I've been able to tell 20 years in TV, tell amazing stories, meet amazing people, go and the leader that I am today, if I can get comfortable calling me myself that, is based on every person I've met along the way, helping to shape me with their stories, helping to help me understand the challenges of being the wife of an immigrant who is killed in a hate crime, who then I travel to Washington, D.C. with her while she goes to hear the State of the Union in the chambers in the White House. When you hear the stories of a young boy with Down syndrome who is found in the ceiling of an attic of a building, he'd been hidden away and abused, and you tell that story, all of that becomes part of you. And those moments in time, the people that you meet, to Dayton's point about getting to know someone's heart, the people that you meet along the way shape who you are, and every day are a part of the person I am today, whether it was a news anchor or a reporter, or it's someone that's a representative of Blue KC now and helping to try and lead the team there and helping to try to educate people and put members first as far as understanding their insurance. All of that, all of my experiences in life go into the moment and the person I am in this moment. So that to me is what all of that shapes us as leaders, whether it's Dayton or it's General Myers or it's you, Jeff, quite frankly, or anybody else on this call. I think you'd all agree your experiences shape you and set you up to be a leader.
Yeah, General Myers, the same question to you.
Wow, these are hard questions, Jeff.
That's why I do what I do. That's right. Work for it.
So how do you become a leader? I think you got to start with basics, and nobody's going to want to follow you if you're not competent at whatever your trade is. So you got to have a basic level of competence. And then I think you have to be somebody that understands that, as Dayton said, the trust is the basis of all relationships. So you have to have somebody that that you can be trusted and you can trust others, and you show that in your everyday life. And that goes to integrity and keeping your word and so forth. And then I think the best leaders are those that are, as Dayton said, are serving something bigger than themselves. And so in the military, selfless service is kind of part of the guiding principles of each branch of the military. And in the military, if you're serving yourself, it's pretty apparent pretty quickly. And nobody wants to follow somebody that they think's in it just for their own benefit, because it could be life and death. And and we've seen, experiences in history where people do things for the wrong reason. So I think all those sort of things, the competency, the relationship building ability, the idea that you're serving something bigger than yourself, I think that all sets you up for leadership opportunities. And then it's up to people around you to kind of select you as the leader. You don't proclaim this sort of stuff. So in the military, you know, your supervisor, your boss, the next in the chain of command says, we're going to give you a chance. And then they measure how you do. And so we get responsibility early in the military, and we're expected to perform, and you eventually learn. I mean, this is a learning experience. You just not get off the turnip truck and you know this stuff. You've got to learn this stuff. And I think the laboratory that I was able to learn in the military was very, very helpful, all the way to including what I'm doing now. And like Mike Matheny, I'm way too old to be doing this and other things, but part of the equation is fun too. And I think leaders have an obligation, no matter what the circumstances is, that there's got to be a little fun in life. And I have a lot of fun here on campus, and this is not a typical year. It's a hard year. It's mentally hard on a lot of people, most people. Fun's authorized. And so it's got to be a balance of all this. But I go back to the basics. I remember in the Pentagon, I was coming out of my office, and there was a young midshipman waiting to see me. He'd been visiting the Pentagon, and he says, General Myers, I've been waiting all day to talk to you. Just tell me, what's it take to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? What do I have to do? And I said, you're a midshipman, right, in Annapolis? Yes. I said, well, are you number one in academics in your class? Oh, no, sir. Well, are you on a Division I sports team, or you're captain of your intramural team? Well, no, sir. And how you do it in military training? Do you get the highest marks there? Well, no, sir. I said, well, none of that's important, other than all you ought to be thinking about right now is being the best at all those you can possibly be. So at the next level, when there are opportunities for more leadership, whether it's in the midshipman ranks or wherever it is, you're prepared. And so I think a lot of it goes back to the preparedness thing, just trying to do the best you can possibly do, and then your supervisor, your bosses will figure it out. But those other traits, selflessness and building relationships, are really important as well.
Yeah, Dayton, you mentioned wanting that privilege of being a leader early in your life, but what are the lessons that helped you become a leader, the things that you learned along the way?
Well, as I said before, a lot of mistakes. But I think, you know, a wise man asked me one time, he made this statement to me. He said, Dayton, he said, one of the good things about you is you listen to a lot of people, you ask a lot of questions. He said, but one of the bad things about you is you listen to a lot of people. And you need more discernment in your life. You need to understand who's earned the right to kind of speak into your life and who to trust. It's good to interact. It's good to continue to ask people's opinion, but you have to have a few people in your life that know are going to speak absolute truth, help mold you and shape you. And as Christa said, so I think that's one of the things I've learned. I wanted to ask General Myers question. General Myers, why do you think President Bush chose you to be the head of the Joint Chief of Staff? Why do you think that? And if you wouldn't mind sharing some of that process and what that was like when you were being considered for that vital, important, one of the most important roles in our country.
The process started with the Secretary of Defense, because he recommends to the president, who then nominates to the Senate for confirmation. And Secretary Rumsfeld, he had a spreadsheet that looked like 2 editions of the Sunday paper laid out, with a huge matrix and names of potential candidates and skill sets across the top. And he was very meticulous, and he would call anybody about you. So if it was Myers, he would call somebody like Dr. Henry Kissinger and say, do you know Myers? What do you think about him? I don't know him, sorry, or I know him and he's not that good, or what. I mean, he really did some homework, and then he narrowed it down to 2 people, and we started on the interview circuit. And I was one of those persons. And it goes back to the selfless service a little bit. I was the two remaining standing after that process the secretary went through were Vern Clark, who was chief of naval operations at the time, and myself. And I really hoped Vern was chosen. And I think Vern really hoped that I was chosen. And we were probably hard people to interview, because when I first walked into the Oval Office and sat down with the president, President Bush, he said, why do you want to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? And I said, I don't look at it that way, sir. The way I look at it, I only want to be the chairman if you think I'm the best person for the job and can get along with you the best. This is, you know, I've got other things to do as well. So I'm honored to serve. I love the opportunity, but this is not, I didn't want to be ambitious about it. I'm just, you know, there's a degree of, I think humility needed here and thankfulness and gratitude for the opportunity. But other than that, so I think it was the relationship. I think he probably felt that I had the background and the relationship that could be effective. That's what I have to assume. I don't think it was on any of the things the press would dwell on. The press said, well, he commanded Space Command, so he's a real techie and all this. Those questions never came up. What they were looking for as a chairman, as an Air Force officer, can you think broader than United States Air Force? That was one of the big questions. And in fact, when I was in office, I deputized my number 2, Pete Pace, a Marine 4-star. I said, he was the vice chairman. I said, Pete, if you ever see me being parochial about anything, you hit me up the side of the head with a 2-by-4. And you can do it in public. You can, I don't care where you do it, but get me back on track, because I'll fail if I'm perceived to be just an Air Force officer. I've got to represent all the armed forces. So I think it was the relationship piece mainly.
Well, we're rolling right now, and I hate to do this. Like, we have to get Matt Folks involved in this some way here, because he's got some stuff to offer as well. We're at the midpoint, if you can believe that already. It's 11:30, and I want to shift just because this webinar again is about mentoring. Matt's going to talk a little about that. He's the director of the CU in the Major Leagues Foundation, and he's going to take it from here.
Thanks, Jeff. I was kind of enthralled there with General Myers. I've seen her taking some notes, but thank you for that, and thank you for this outstanding conversation that we're getting about leadership. And just to throw in a quick note for those of you who aren't history buffs, what General Myers was just talking about as far as becoming the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That was he was confirmed, I believe, if I'm correct on this, October 1st, right after 9/11. So this whole process was basically 9/11, and he helped guide the country through that. So I'm sure Jeff will circle back to that at some point. But yes, thank you to those of you who have given so far during this Crown Town Challenge campaign. This has been a lot of fun to see the videos, and we look at the attendees on this list. A lot of you submitted videos, and we're thankful for that. The C10 program, as Jeff alluded to, the C10 Mentoring and Leadership Program is in its 3rd year. We have 20 students this year. Each one is paired with an adult mentor, and we just do life with them. They get educational enhancements. They get job and life skills. Last night, for instance, they heard from one of our mentors, Al Wallace. Many of you know who Al is from his days at Fox 4 here in Kansas City. He's one of our mentors. He shared a great lesson last night with our students on critical thinking and how to look at life through different eyes. And it was a great presentation for the adults, but then certainly for these high school students. But we also want to get them into the community and serve. And so this is just a chance for us to do life with them for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it might be, and then help them on that next stage of life and possibly scholarships. Whether, as Jeff mentioned early in this, whether that means they want to go to college, whether they're going to trade school, or just directly into the workforce. So I can tell you this, these are going to be tremendous leaders at some point. And I'm 50, and at some point, hopefully before I die, I'll see these, some of our students, as great leaders in this community. They could be a university president one day. They could be mayor of Kansas City. They want to be leaders in this community. But you know what? They can only do this because of our mentors and because of the committee members like Jeff and Max Utzler and others who are on this call. But also they can only do it because of you and your support of them. And so, as Jeff mentioned, we do have a $5,000 matching gift available. If we're able to hit that, that would be $10,000 if we're able to match that. And so $10,000, that gives 5 students a whole year of mentoring and leadership development. And then it also helps us develop this scholarship program. So
You can do it in one of two ways. You can go to crowntownchallenge.com, click on the donate link, or you can text, and I do need to read this number again, 31996. That's the number you'll type into your phone, 31996. And all you have to type in is the letter C and the number 10. So C10, and you'll get a link back and you can make a donation straight from your phone with that. So I don't want to take any more time. Jeff, I'm enjoying this too much. And so we go back to you. Thanks everybody for being on this call.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Well, we'll come back to you, Christa, since you're the leadoff hitter in all these questions. You referenced some of the stories that you worked with, that you did when you were in the media. And I know that you've transitioned, you talked about that transition you've made into the corporate world, but I'm curious, what's the best example of leadership you've ever seen?
Oh my gosh, so many. This is going to seem like I'm playing to the audience a little bit, but I think it's a true example of good leadership that the entire city has witnessed. I think that Dayton Moore leading the Royals in 2014 and 2015 and watching that play out on the public stage was a really fantastic example of leadership. And it's one, the reason I think that's a good example is because it's one that brought the city with it. We were all hanging on by a thread on who they bring in, how long they'd keep certain players, who the relief pitchers would be, how they would manage all that. So the whole city was invested in that run and got to see leadership. So I think that's a good example I think most can relate to. And again, there've been different times throughout my life, but most of the time, if I just generalize it a little bit, the best leadership that I've seen and have witnessed and been a part of a team that got to see it is someone who was willing to walk beside the team, not stand above or I've heard it described as being in the trenches, but I like to use the phrase walk beside. And that's probably true for every example I would give you if I went into specifics, but there's a lot of really great leaders in this city. And I mean, there's others, Mayor James and Mayor Quentin Lucas, obviously leading on their own fronts as far as from the city's perspective. And again, I use those examples because they were bringing an entire city along with them through their efforts and the things they were working on. So just some good examples I think most on the call could probably relate to.
Okay, I just saw in the chat that Dayton asked me if you have Venmo so we can get the payment to you.
No, I mean, but you know, maybe I had a different seat to that too, because I got to be covering it. I was on the field with it. We were down there and just experiencing it with them. But I'm not just kidding, but I will give him my Venmo account.
Okay. Just so people know. What's that, Dave?
If we had to do it all over again, and the next time we're in a position to be in the playoffs and hopefully win another World Series, I'm going to do a better job and take General Myers's advice, and that is simply have more fun with it, enjoy it. And that's one of my regrets in life is we didn't enjoy that. Personally, I didn't enjoy that run as much as I probably should have with my family, with the people that we've sacrificed with and worked with and the fans, because we were so locked in and so focused on just wanting to do something special. And remember, I was with the Braves for almost 13 years and we were in the playoffs every single year. We won one World Series. And so I knew how difficult it was and how much had to go right for you to win. And I knew that our timeline was short in a small market. And so when we do it again, we're going to enjoy it, to take General Myers' advice a little bit, have fun with it, laugh more, and enjoy that. And that's good wisdom. But Christa, let me ask you, tell me about your hero in life, your mom. I want to hear more about your mom.
I don't know if I can talk about her without getting emotional. My mom, she passed away a couple years ago. So, but I'll tell you, there's two things I will tell you about my mom. Growing up, her life's focus was on everybody has a story. And it's interesting to me how that came full circle in my life as an adult, and it still is as active. I remember we would be driving down the road, and if there was someone driving slow in front of us, and some people might be getting frustrated or honking as they kind of pass them quickly and clearly frustrated. And my mom used to always say to us, she was my sister and I, until my brother came along later, but she would say, you never know what that person's going through. They could have just lost somebody. They could had just gotten a really devastating call. They could be, you know, and so that's just an example. That was every day of our life. There were acknowledgement that whoever you just met, the person that was just rude she worked at a bank, was a teller, the person that was just rude, you don't know what they've gone through. It's not personal. They need you to give them a smile because you don't know what's causing that. And that was how she lived her life. And it truly does come full circle about how I became as an adult, as a reporter, as I told those stories. And it applies now very much in the current role that I'm in, and wanting to understand that everybody's got a story. You want to hear it. You want to help give them the tools they need to be successful and to be educated and to understand things. That's where the communication comes in. That's one thing about my mom. And then the other thing is that I knew at the time, I knew that she always had this no regrets mantra. But after she passed away, we were cleaning out her office. We found this saying taped up in all these different places. It was in like the top drawer. It was an article from like a 1970 something magazine. I've since bought the book that it originally published in, but it was all about no regrets. And it talks about the things you may regret. You may regret, you know, spending too much money or not saying you're sorry, but you'll never regret the chance to be not to be kind. So her point was, if you're kind, there's no way you walk away from the experience having regrets. And so that's another mantra that we knew that existed, but we didn't know the origin of the quote until we found it taped all over everything. So those are things I carry with me every day. I have a bracelet that's a no regrets place, and I think it applies here to the audience that we would want to share with is take your moments. You know, have faith in yourself to take a leap. If we get to it, I'll talk about a stream analogy when we talk about sort of mentorship, but take your moments, take your opportunities, much like Dayton had to do in that intense. I mean, when you talk about when you didn't have as much fun, we saw the commitment, you saw the intensity, you saw the moments of, I don't want to regret this moment. How can we get Johnny Cueto here to help us? You know, how can we lived that with you, and we saw that commitment. So no regrets. And I would imagine that as you look back, and maybe that's your one regret, you probably don't regret the moments that you committed that time and energy that didn't allow you to have fun with it, the time that you spent late night on the phone. And I would say that applies to our audience too. Take those moments, evaluate the situation on any given day, and make the decision that will let you step forward with as little regret or no regret as possible.
You know, General Myers, I want to come to you real quick because Matt referenced this in the break about 9/11 and you getting that job as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff about 3 weeks after that happened. I'm just curious about how you lead through something like that, the biggest threat to our country, obviously, and how you handle that, you know, going forward.
Well, you know, they were pretty challenging times, and people said, "How in the world are you doing this?" And it was challenging, but it wasn't exceedingly difficult because you just rely on your teammates. And I had a great team in the Joint Staff and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the various service heads. We were a pretty cohesive team. That's not always been the case, I think, in history, but in my experience when I was chairman, we were very cohesive, probably because we had this, what it appeared at first like an existential threat against our country. So people were more inclined to come together. But you just got to rely on folks. You can't carry that whole load yourself, and if you do, it'll crush you. So it goes back to the trust factor, right? So you trust people, and by the way, when you do, they'll always perform. They'll outperform a case where you're constantly on their case to perform better. Just trust them. Tell them what the objective is, and they'll run with it. At least that was my experience on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then which is the 1,200 person staff we work with, and we got some great results out of that. But that also extended into the interagency with the State Department, Commerce, Treasury, all these folks that had to participate in all our activities, whether Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever, is try to build that trust and trust people to do the right thing. And yes, you have to be responsible. Yes, you have to make some decisions and so forth, and you can't be late on that. But to develop that sort of trust among everybody, I think is key.
Okay. Well, Dayton, I mean, we're going to come to you real quick because we actually have a question from a viewer. And if you do have a question, once again, you can hit the Q&A button and throw it out there, and Matt folks will pick it up and give it to me. Dayton, the viewer, Mike, was talking about how candid you are and just how honest and upfront you are. And it's, how do you strike that balance between being candid with people and not going too far, being too honest, I guess?
One of my mentors, John Sherholtz, when we first came here to Kansas City, I was here about a week, and he called me and he said, look, he said, one of the things that you've got to do a better job of is not be so transparent at times, and learn to provide information, but you've got to be careful with how much information that you give, whether it be to the media, the fans, and so forth. I've always had trouble with that. My mother always told me I was a bad liar when I was a young boy. And so, but I found, Jeff, you know what? I don't know if I've really taken that advice, because I learned that you might as well be transparent in life because you're going to get exposed anyway. You might as well be an open book. Yes, there's certain things in leadership that you just simply cannot share because of the trust factor with, whether it be, John Sherman, our new owner, Mike Matheny, our manager, one of our players. I mean, we all know the difference between what we can share that's personal in nature, that is between two people. I mean, that goes without saying. You cannot betray that trust in a relationship. But, we're dealing with baseball. Baseball was created to bring joy in people's lives. It was created to bring families together. We're not trying to put men on Mars. We're not trying to solve or create a vaccine for COVID-19. I mean, it's baseball, and we might as well share the ups and downs and share our journey, share the stories of our players. And that's one of the things that we convey to our players when we draft them. Look, Kansas City is a special place, and we need you to be a character on this team and interact with fans and relate to fans and to give your time to fans, because that's how you're going to attract them to our sport. And so I think that's really, really important. And when I'm listening to Christa and I'm listening to General Myers, I mean, Christa's got such an inviting personality. It would be awesome to be able to spend a morning or a day with Christa, because she's going to make you feel better about yourself. And then when you listen to General Myers and you study his career, obviously he's extremely smart. He's extremely poised. He's very humble. And humility is such a key characteristic and important trait in leadership, because I guarantee you there's nobody that General Myers worked with that didn't want to see him successful, because he's a humble man, and he's easy to follow because of that humility. And so those are some of the things that I've picked up from following both of their careers, and listening to them today has just reaffirmed that.
Well, General Myers, since Dayton just referenced you, we have a question for you coming from Jorge. This involves making difficult decisions. He wants to know, where does your mind go to draw inspiration or calmness when you're in the midst of making these kinds of really tough decisions?
Well, first, let me thank you for the kind words from Dayton. That's I haven't paid him, I don't think. I may eventually have to pay him to be my PR agent. I think the inspiration, well, to make a good decision, I think you have to have a lot of confidence in your sense of what's right and wrong. I think you have to, faith can play a part of this, of course, whatever faith you practice. But in the end, it comes down to fundamentals. And when it really gets tough, I just lean on the fundamentals. And every one of our professions, life has some fundamental aspects to it. And when I talk about civil military relationships, the fundamentals there are the Constitution of the United States, the ethos of the U.S. military, and the laws of the land. And that's what I fall back to when these decisions get difficult. So I think we all have some foundation pieces that we can lean on, but essentially it's having the confidence and courage to do the right thing. Most of us know what the right thing is, whatever the decision that's before us. We know what the right decision is, and it's just having the confidence and courage to make that decision and move forward. And we know instantly, I mean, all of you know, every one of you on this call knows, once you make a decision, you know right away whether you made the right one or the wrong one. I mean, your stomach tells you right away. And I don't care what our professions is, whether it's has to do with war and the lives of men and women, or a baseball decision, wherever that decision is, we know when we make the right one. So I think having the confidence and courage, and there were several times in my career where I would make a decision around an issue which was controversial perhaps. And I can remember calling my wife on several occasions and saying, Mary Jo, is your teaching certificate up to date? Because I think here in just a few minutes, I'm going to be unemployed in the United States Air Force, and we're going to have to lean on your teaching certificate to go back into the classroom. And I mean, I was semi-joking with her, but not totally, because I said, hey, honey, I think I've done something here that could be the end of this deal. And but I would live with that, because in my heart, I thought I was right. And I would still do that today. I still do that. We still do that here at K-State. You know, you got to go on what you think is right.
Yeah, it's funny. A friend of mine's dad was a colonel in the Army. He used to always say, his dad would say, always go with the hard right over the easy wrong, and you'll always end up.
That's exactly right. So not to go too far off, so we had what we call KS Unite, which is a diversity and inclusion effort we've done now for our 4th year. We did that yesterday. And, you know, there's an executive order out that says we shouldn't make people uncomfortable with certain situations around diversity and inclusion. And so people were nervous. Should we do this, or should we call it off? I said, no, what's the right thing? The right thing to do is to do it. And we'll take whatever comes our way. And we had some intruders in our Zoom session that some disgusting comments that we quickly shut off. But I mean, you got to do that in the face of, you got to do the right thing, and you just got to stand up and do it. And let the chips will fall where they may. But if you do, the chips usually fall in your favor, almost always fall in your favor.
Well, we got about 10 minutes to go here, and I want to remind people that Dayton is going to stay on for about 15 minutes after this. So I want to hit Christa and General Myers before they sign off. And Christa, I wanted to ask you, you referenced Dayton and the job he did with the Royals when they won that championship. And a big part of that job was building a winning culture, a successful culture. And now that you're in this big role, making all that money that you're making, these big business cards you're throwing around, I'm curious, you know, when you're a media person, it's just you generally. But when you're in charge of a whole department of people, marketing, public relations, all this stuff, like how are you trying to build a culture?
So I'll tell you, it's not as different as you might initially think about making that transition, because my philosophy as a news reporter and anchor was to try to take care of the people I served every day. That was individuals on social media that I could be in direct communication with. The joke was I was like the Aaron Brockovich of my Facebook page. I really knew a little bit about all of them. I could still tell you about them. And about the audience as well, it was about helping to make sure that I was taking care of them. And it took me time to feel like I had the right to be up there. It always took me about 2 or 3 years. So I moved a couple of times in my career to feel like I'd earned the right to be able to sit up there and try to help communicate and educate and raise awareness. And so it all still applies where I am now. The audience, my team is smaller, significantly smaller than the team I used to feel like I served as a TV news reporter and anchor. So I'm a big fan of audiences and understanding your different audiences. And you and you can have many audiences, I can have many audiences. So I consider my team one of my audiences. It's one of the groups I serve. I want, no question is silly to ask. You should not be embarrassed to ask question. Is how you learn. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that we are in this together. No judgment. Again, it goes back to my mom saying everybody's got a story. So if something happens, and let's say somebody doesn't seem like they're paying attention in a meeting, and one person on the call might get frustrated that someone's not committed or seems to be devoted to the meeting, my mind goes to, what are they going through? What are they juggling? What kid are they trying to homeschool right now because we're sitting in COVID and they've got a distraction? They're trying to be here and also manage the 9-year-old that's tugging on him trying to get a sandwich or something. So everyone's got a story. That all still comes into that. And then the larger audience for me is the city of Kansas City and the people who are what it used to be that were viewers. Now my service is to the people who are potentially insured by Blue KC and want to understand all the lingo and the words that are used. I'm still learning. I've been here 10 months and I'm still every day hear a new phrase, and I write down on a column, write the word, and I go Google it and I learn. And so it's really not that much of a leap. It's really about, to General Myers' point, he said confidence and courage, and he talked about, in your stomach. And I always say confidence and courage from your core. Confidence in your core thoughts and feelings, confidence in your core ethics and beliefs. If you have that confidence in your core, and you can lead with courage and know that it's coming from the right place, or better put, your stomach will tell you. So I thought that was a really good way to put it. So that's a little bit of a long-winded answer, but there's not that much difference, to be honest.
Well, that's a great segue into General Myers. We'll get the last chance to answer a question here from a viewer who just asked me, what advice would you give people when you're taking risks in leadership?
Well, I think as if they're people that, your teammates, I think, as Dayton says, you got to have their backs. So social injustice, of course, is one of the hot topics right now. Our athletic department wanted to display unity in certain ways and use certain symbols. And we were getting a lot of pushback from some alums that didn't appreciate some of that. And I told both Coach Kleiman, our head football coach, and our athletic director, Gene Taylor, I said, you all are doing the right thing, and I've got your back. We'll read all these emails and we'll handle all that stuff. And the folks that don't want to donate anymore because of maybe our stand on something, that's fine. We'll deal with that. But we're doing the right thing. I got your back. Do what you need to do, what you think is appropriate, because they're both wonderful men and we have a good relationship. And so I think that's a huge part of it. I think just making sure people know, because none of us are perfect, right? We're going to make a lot of mistakes in life, and they need to know that the person they're working with, or their supervisor, or their boss, or whatever, is going to have their back and understands that. And both Dayton and Christa talked about grace. And if there's ever a time in life when we need to give people some grace, it's this really crazy time right before a national election with all the other issues we have going on. We ought to do it all the time, as Christa's mom pointed out, but we got to give people a lot of grace. And we try to do that around here and around K-State. We don't expect people to be perfect. We just expect them to be working towards perfection, but we don't expect anybody to ever get there, frankly. Mm-hmm. And including myself. You have to give yourself grace.
We got before we hit the 12 o'clock here. So I want to, first of all, thank General Myers and Christa for being a part of this. They have to check out here at noon, and obviously amazing stuff you guys just offered up over the last hour. I also want to remind people about that $5,000 matching gift that's out there. We're still trying to raise money. And if you haven't given already, once again, crowntownchallenge.com, hit the donate button, or you can go text 31996 and type C10, and you can do it that way. Dayton's going to stick around now until 12:30. So apparently he's going to talk 15 minutes longer than we had planned. So get those questions ready for him. But thank you so much again, Christa and General Myers, for doing this. I obviously have a very personal stake in C10 and know what we've done. I knock on wood every time. We've got great students, great parents, and great mentors. We're batting 1,000 when it comes to that. I know Dayton would say the same thing. So thank you for being a part of this and helping us raise more money to keep this thing going.